Hey, Aphro Kingdom. Today we're on part two of the conversation with Zen, and in this episode we're this continue to sorry, we're continuing the conversation about the Black community and sexual abuse amongst men of color. In the last episode, we were finishing the question of how Zen opened up to his wife about the experience and how the conversation went. Zen, can you give us like a little summary of
Yeah,
how
I
the
mean, generally, it was the last thing that we spoke about was um, discovering what happened for myself, and then being able to express that to loved ones, which is typically the biggest issue. And I went ahead to express that in order to show that that courage exists.
yes, that's exactly how that conversation went. Um, um, so prior to meeting your wife, you were in the dating scene, right?
The dating scene?
Yeah, were you before
Yeah,
prior to
yeah, heavily. I was heavily in the dating scene.
would you say that that experience affected your dating life?
I would say so. It actually, yeah, you know, I think that me as a male, where it channeled out a lot was in my faith towards another woman, my ability to stay committed. Um, I had a high sexual drive due to the situation, and it all came from a place of trying to figure out um, where I am and who I am, and so I embarked in a lot of relationships. Even if I was already in one, I would go into another one and go into another one, and just never sat by myself. And a lot of the times you get these titles as players, or that kind of jazz, but in reality, it's someone that just is super alone and is struggling to look in the mirror and see something of value. Relationships typically validate something. When you're in a relationship, it usually says someone is choosing me, someone wants me. And when you're alone, sometimes a thought comes across where it's like no one wants me. And I waned back and forth between that, and I always made sure that I had a relationship to rely on, going in and out of one. And even if I abandoned them under the idea that I, um, you know, was in one. So, but yeah, it definitely took a toll. I've learned it was a struggle to stay in one relationship, commit. It was an actual muscle that I had to exercise. Oddly enough.
Outside your dating life, what would you say the experience affected you as a whole of your upbringing?
Uh, how did the experience affect me as a whole?
Yes.
So as a whole, um, like I said, generally speaking, you enter into the world a new person after an experience like it, and so from there, this new person is overwhelmed with a disconnection between all essential uh, counterparts to life. The connection to love, the connection to feel inner peace, the connection to understand what love is. All of that is, you're detached from all of that, and you have to redevelop a new idea of it. I mean, we all go through that in life, where we have to redevelop ourselves and bring insight to old terms, love, marriage, these things. We all go through something in life to give us new definitions. And my experience into that journey was, this kind of treatment towards my body. After the experience, I embarked on a long journey till this day of unraveling um, personal truths, about the world within me and outside of me. Yeah.
And the last question about your personal experience with sexual abuse, who would you say was the first person you told and you confided in, and why did you choose them?
Well, it was the relationship. In the last video, you'll be able to touch more in depth into what I was saying about it. But yeah, once I got with my partner today, um, it was easier for me to share these experiences with them due to reaching certain levels that I felt like I didn't reach before, which was a stronger sense of commitment, a drive to commit. You know, just staying that path allowed me to reveal more and more of myself and feeling safe in doing that. So that was really it. You know, I just needed one person to be comfortable with in order to reveal myself more and more. And now I feel over the time I've now felt like a weight has been removed off my chest over and over again. It's been that feeling of having that knowing and then moving forward moving in a direction that allows me to sustain a healthier mind, because all like in relationship it definitely affects every aspect of life, relationships with friends, people at work, you know, like you are a certain person and then you overcome these things depending on the direction you know, just depending on the decisions you make over time. You develop a new sense of self.
Now, in this section of the conversation, we're going to I'm going to ask you a question specifically about the Black community
Yeah.
when it comes to sexual abuse.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on sexual abuse amongst the Black community?
Well, I believe the Black community, or the um, the African American community, if you will, we we um, we have the potential, despite the history and despite everything else. What's in our blood is to live as a tribe. But in the lineage of our blood, there has been so much tempering with our psyche over time, that we all have the right intention. However, you get someone who's just misled or been affected and spawns off a new a pattern that exists now, sexual abuse. So it happens in the Black community quite often because we trust one another to raise one another and to be with one another and to build businesses and castles and live and in prosperity as a unit, and held together as individuals, but having a strong sense of unity through action. And it's in our heart, it's in our blood. um you know, and I don't want to weigh down on the action, but sometimes people just make the wrong mistakes and it just sends off a lineage of a downward spiral. And but I always say life makes no mistakes, so it's very challenging to embody the experience it and make it your own and convert it into something positive. And that's what I would have to bring to any community, including ours, the way to at least generally start off, because it's to avoid it. It's for me, it's difficult to stop trusting someone. My spirit naturally just avoids, and I'm protected by all sources of not needing to be in the certain place at a certain time. So if I'm not somewhere, it's meant to be. If I'm there, it's meant to be. And I was in a place at the perfect time and it happened to me, and I've learned based off of my own habits and inspiration, of course, too, of making certain choices that were always going to feel better. And there's a certain knowing that we all come with, the intuition, the feel good feeling that we all are familiar with. And we must have it over and over again to recognize it and to use it as a reference. But using our intuition to be closer to people and to be trusting and loving. It's a muscle that must maintain, even though we do within our community have to go through things, because no matter the issue, the power of unity is that it can't be broken. So if it's broken, it's not unity. It's the opposite of unity. It's disconnection. So once it's together, and it defines as togetherness. But if it's broken, it's defined as broken. There's no, it could be, or this and that. It's just what it is. And I know that the way things are right now, the African American community, the Black community, is strung together by a deep knowing, a solid bloodline knowing of unity. And because we have people in our community that might make the wrong decisions, it does not and should not disconnect our unity, because it's in our bloodline. So to do anything else is resistance to our own well-being as a whole. I believe we're the backbone of this planet. So when we deal with these issues, to be supportive and to be knowing, because every time I come across someone, 9 times out of 10 they went through what I went through, and the only way I know is by me bringing it up, by me taking ownership of myself, and by me taking ownership of myself, they take ownership of themselves. Half the time I meet someone in that state, they have already gotten to a certain level within themselves to be able to receive a certain, to put their own badge on their chest and say, okay, I got this far with this experience. Now it's time for me to go in this direction and to detach myself from the negative emotions that come with that experience, and to be in full bliss with how I can utilize it. So just to dial back in real quick, the African American community is a very powerful community. And when you got things like violence and sexual abuse, with, in other words, self-sabotage, when we have these things, I do believe as a collective whole, we have it in ourselves to stay together, because we're meant to be. And anything else, we just have to be, those who are aware have to hold tight, keep our hands tight, while the others still figure out how to grasp, how to get a grip. And it's easy to do that while you live your life, because you're not maintaining and focusing on that particularly. But the more you be yourself, the more you evolve within yourself, you end up naturally just speaking to your own kind, without titles, without being so intentional and direct. Just being a well-being person allows you to just vibrationally connect to those who are there to resonate. Particularly me, the African American community, the world at whole has issues. I believe the African American community to be very powerful, and like I said, to be the backbone of the earthlings, of these beings here. We're on a color spectrum, and the depths of our melanin has a lot of energy and records buried deep within the DNA. And by now it's really hard to defy that. And everyone does their own research or whatever, but what you and I, we can feel something when we go to sleep, and we can wake up and feel something, not in contrast to others, but the insight we have within ourselves. So yeah, that's pretty much, I hope that can clear. Sorry about I guess my phone camera is messed up. I don't know. It keeps fading in and out, but I think I have like a messed up camera. But yeah.
I think when you don't move, it goes back clear like this, and then when you start moving, it just go in and out.
Got you. I move a lot when I talk, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you're fine though. So as a topic, do you feel as though people in the Black community talk enough about sexual abuse or give out support needed? What's your thoughts on that topic?
Well, I haven't done my homework as far as what I in early stages of my life, I did see that there are people, running their own missions and taking initiative and doing stuff like that. So big ups to them. And I know that people know what's up. I know that it's such a long going problem that I know that there are those out there who are taking initiative to speak up. So I do believe there is. I think that, you know, more and more are just going to keep naturally feeling like it's necessary. People are going to keep waking up. People are just going to keep waking up. So I do believe it's there, and I think it's something that's going to keep growing.
What are your thoughts on the Black community and sexual abuse victims who claim the gender male?
So, like, being a male and undergoing sexual abuse?
Yes, in the Black community.
Well, I mean, it's indifferent. You know, sexual abuse is indifferent. Sexual abuse is its own energy that travels through all types of people. And if it wants to go to someone who's a male, it's going to happen. If it wants to go to someone that's a female, it's going to happen. It just happens. You know, there's no, there's no real target. You know, it happens to babies. It happens to young adults. It can happen to a whole adult. It's the consequence and what happens after that causes us to then realize that we've been abused. You don't recognize it, but as you get older, maybe you will recognize it in a sense. But you know, it happens all the time. It does, and I don't believe it will go towards someone, male or female. It will go to where it wants to go to.
In what ways do you believe our community can better support and protect victims when it comes to sexual abuse?
I mean, we could definitely, as we're doing right now, we're being more open and more available about it. You know, I think that if we continue to have more one-on-ones, bring it into the homes, and talk with our kids, because we don't know everyone, but we do know a lot of people. Like I can have an uncle, my brother, whatever, but it doesn't matter truly 100% about them. It's about the child. If we're educating our children that there are areas on the body that other people should not touch, it just needs to be known. Kids are sponges and they can know this. They need to know how to protect themselves in that sense. They need to know how to protect themselves psychologically. They do it all the time. They get upset for a reason. They feel uncomfortable for a reason. My 1-year-old run behind my leg when she sees another person for a reason. They are psychologically protecting themselves from harm. So it's easier to talk to your child. It's a one-on-one session. It doesn't need to be, you know, like kids need that. That's all that there is to it. We don't have to have anything major and big going on. It just needs to be in the house engagement. I didn't get that engagement, you know, and I knew it would have helped if I was told this is the way. And as far as like, no one should be touching you. No one should touch you like this. No one should do this to you, etc., etc. Taking the time, having the patience.
That's good. I also agree on that. Because I mean, from my own experience, as you had in a previous conversation, I also am a victim. I don't. I wasn't young. I was just 18, about 3 months in, just graduated high school, and the person didn't understand when to stop. And so I also had to go through that own challenge in myself, just entering the world as an adult and being violated. So I can actually understand, like, even though you was a child when that happened and I was an adult, you kind of go through the same motions.
Yeah.
And try to figure out, like, at one point I didn't realize people, when males touch me, I would shake or I would do this out of nowhere. And I didn't realize that it affected me, the experience affected me, until like the third time a male tried to touch me without asking, and I would move. And then I realized that I think this actually affected me more than I thought. And within, it's just funny how like life happens. Because right after that time when I was trying to like act like it didn't happen, things on the news will keep popping up, or TV shows that topic will keep coming up, and I'm like, I don't have no choice. I gotta just tell the story because it's just going to keep affecting me, and I don't want to be in a room and that topic come on, and then my family's like, "Why are you getting so emotional about that topic? Like you acting like it happened to you." And then then it'll be an awkward conversation because then I would have to bring it up. So that's
Right.
when I started talking in college. I think someone knew a sister. Her sister was actually kind of similar situation as you. A babysitter took advantage of her, and she was talking about experience, so I started sharing it. And as I kept talking about it and connecting with other people who like knew someone in that situation or they personally went through it, that's when I was able to relieve that problem. I even got the chance to even talk to the person and tell them like, no, what you did was wrong. I hope you learned your lesson. I hope you didn't do that to no one else. I think most people don't get that chance to actually talk to the person that caused that problem. But I felt more power by saying it. Even though they try to put the problem back on me and saying like I teased them, I'm like, no, no means no. It ain't no teasing. If somebody tell you to stop, regardless if you think they was playing, just stop. Because if they was playing, they would just tell you, why did you stop? So, the funny thing, the person's a cop now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, cops are
Yeah,
just normal people, you know? They just wear a badge. I was a security guard, so I know what it looks like to just be a normal person just wearing a uniform. And accolades, nothing makes you any better than anyone else. Cop, whatever, you're still a human being, makes mistakes and makes bad decisions. You know, no, just because they're the law doesn't mean that people are gonna go around and be holy and saints, and they want to clock out just like everyone else who's working at a job and stuff like that, you know. So, but that's very powerful though. So congratulations to you to be able to not only like confront yourself but confront the person. Kudos to you. That's good stuff.
thank you. I think the only person I really need to tell was like my ex and my other time, like was dating at the same time, and I was afraid to tell them because I thought they was going to fight that person and end up in jail. So I was like, let me not bring it up because I don't want them getting in trouble. Or they can't come to my house because then my family think like every male that comes to the house is going to try and affect me like that person did. So I kind of saved that information mainly because of that to protect other people, not me myself, but to protect other people. And then eventually, when I got the courage to like talk to that person that caused that, and then talk to my ex, well now ex, about the situation, we actually had time to talk about. It really lifted the problem off my shoulders, and I was able to like go through life with that without having that problem anymore because I was able to like deal with it in a natural cause without bringing the police or any other people in there. I was able to have just a one-on-one conversation with those people. It really helped me to become more open about the situation and to be able to talk about it more.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just added my piece because I don't want people to think like I just having you talk about it, but to say that I'm also am a
Yeah. Of
victim. Even though
course.
I never show it, most people are surprised when they find out about it because like how chill I am about the subject because I don't feel bothered by it no more.
Yeah, I get it.
So I hope like just like males, I hope women also find the power to if they can't because authority also don't listen. So I was like, that'll be pointless. So I said it's better for me just to confront the person than me trying to have authorities and then they want to ask me a million questions over and over again and never solving the problem.
Right.
I just wanted the person to know what they did was wrong and that I hope they learned their lesson.
Yeah.
I'm like, we already got enough people of color in jail. I just hope you learn your lesson. Like when somebody say stop, just stop, regardless of what you think it is. That's why you need to communicate.
Right. Most certainly. I agree 100%.
Now, in this section, we're going to focus on ways we can help victims of sexual abuse.
Okay. Just a heads up, my phone is on low battery. How many more sessions did you need?
Oh, this is the last one.
Okay, yeah. All right. If it cuts off, I could just charge it up and we can pick back up. But yeah, let's run it. Yeah. So
What
one,
advice would you give to sexual abuse victims who are having a hard time getting past their experience?
Well, in the first video,
This is the part where his phone had died, so we'll be back in a second.
Oh, hi.
yeah.
Okay, you want to answer the question? You want me to ask the question again?
Sure, if you need to for your recording, yeah.
Okay. What advice would you give to sexual abuse victims who's having a hard time like getting over the past with their
Getting over the past.
with their experience?
I think the struggle is what we try to do is we try to get rid of it, and it's not something like when you try to get rid of something, you're already putting in too much effort, and it usually ends up working against you. The trick is to, when you look at where you're at now, because obviously it's the past, so it's the past, it happened, but currently you're still alive. So what can you do as a living being is more of the question, to maintain a healthy mind. When you have a healthy mind, you don't really focus, you don't let things of the past haunt you. And one of the best things you can possibly do, meditation. First thing in the morning is preferably it's my choice because I get my day started. So I like to take cold showers. I like to meditate. People, you know, if you like praying, you know, these things put you in a state of being able to take on the day in a way that you prefer. A lot of the times we come across someone and they say something and it triggers us and we lose our cool. That's you in your battle. It's never the person, it's you losing a grip on the emotions. So the idea is after this abuse and all that kind of stuff, we lose a grip on our emotions. So on our emotions, we want to meditate. We want to do anything we can to develop a better relationship with how we feel when we feel it, and not letting it control us and not letting it pass us. And if it does, practice forgiveness towards yourself every step of the way. Through those actions, your whole history will be erased because you've learned to forgive by counting the blades of grass in front of you instead of looking at the field of pain behind you. So that's really how I go about it. And, you know, I'm a work in progress myself, so I still utilize these techniques.
What advice would you give to males in the Black community who's been sexually abused?
Advice to give to them, I would same thing. Like as far as health maintenance, you know, same thing. Um, do whatever you got to do. Meditate, pray, um, do more things that you like to put yourself in and have gratitude in those moments. You got to really be in the moment. You got to really be in the moment when you do stuff. By being in the moment is noticing how good you feel when you are feeling. That way you have a place of reference to go to when you don't feel good, because any negative feeling that we have is connected to any negative feeling that we ever had. And if you didn't feel good during that trauma and you don't feel good in the future for whatever reason, it's all connected. It's the same plane of sensation. So getting out of that feeling and going into a different feeling that you prefer, happiness, comfort, peace, security, these things, when you practice being happy in the moment, doing things for yourself as far as what things that you enjoy and putting yourself in a peaceful state, you then build a reference point of what it feels like to be happy. And that's how you develop an awareness of emotions, because when you're not happy, you develop contrast. And out of contrast, you further understand where you want to be. Like, oh, I don't feel good being all this sad. So let me focus on things that make me happy instead of basking in it. What we do is we like to stay in the state of negativity, thinking that we're actually making progress when we're not. You don't make progress through expressing your negativity. You make progress in maintaining and nurturing your your frustrations. It's sitting there and you're just giving it all your attention. But then when you shift in solution mode, when you then start speaking in solution, you see a problem with yourself, or you have a problem with yourself, you see a problem outside of you, you practice the tendency of saying, oh man, this doesn't look like it works. Here are a couple ideas that I've had to get out of this situation. What are your thoughts? Or to self, what are your thoughts? Or, higher self, what are your thoughts? I'm a little upset about it, and being forgiving with yourself when you feel negative emotion. That's the number one thing. Being okay with, okay, I am upset right now. Okay, I am upset. But let me go from anger to sadness. Let me go to sadness to agitated. Let me go to agitated to comfortable. Let me go to comfortable to peace. Let me go to peace to happiness. Let me go to happiness to bliss. You work your way up the spectrum, but as you develop that sense of contrast, then you're able to dictate where you are along that spectrum each time you come back to self.
Oh, what would you tell victims who are afraid to tell their truth?
You got to get over that, because they need to hear it. If you are a conduit of planting seeds and watering them, you got to, if you're not comfortable talking to your kids, that's a number one indication that you're not engaged with your children. If you are engaged with your kids, you can tell them what they need to know based off of your belief systems. Some people might find it uncomfortable. The earlier the better, because kids don't have a discomfort to conversation. It's all new to them. So the earlier the better. If they're later on age, that's an opportunity for you to develop a relationship with them by sharing something important with them. And if you are a victim, say, hey, I went through something and I want you to know. Oh, mom, dad, what's your story? This happened to me when I was a kid and it hurt me for a long time. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's crazy. That's so crazy. Yeah, so I just want to share with you a few things that you should know, what it feels like, so that you can avoid it. Things you could do to avoid it. Just little tips and tricks to just be okay with saying no to this, moving in this direction. That's where it begins. When you have to sit down with people like this, it starts off a new relationship, especially with the people you love, your children.
And what advice do you have for victims who's like afraid to enter the dating world after an event like this?
Say that again.
What advice would you tell victims who are afraid to enter the dating world after experiencing something like this?
What kind of world we're talking about?
Dating world.
Dating world. Oh, I mean, like all dating, you got to be ready for it. That after all that I'm saying, when you come to terms and peace with yourself, after all the work you're putting into yourself, never enter a relationship if you can't love yourself. If you don't know how to love yourself and be aware of your emotions, don't enter into a relationship. Those are the mistakes I made, getting into a relationship and not knowing what feeling is what and how to treat myself so that I can ask for that treatment for someone else. You don't want to go on that. You don't want to do that. You want to know yourself, be patient. A lot of it's sex driven. A lot of it's eye candy that pulls us in, that makes us want. A lot of it's loneliness, but it's okay. In such a high active world, we got to learn to be okay with being in the room alone and having a conversation with ourselves, being aware of our own voices. And the dating world is always going to be there. You could be 70, 80. Someone's going to want to have your company. I've seen it. I've seen over the age of 50, people finally finding the one. If that's what you want, it's bound to happen. But first, you don't want to attract someone that is very similar to you, as far as not knowing who they are, inconsiderate or insecure. These kind of things that you go through, you don't want to attract that. So you want to be on your top game when you're pulling in relationships. That's my advice.
And for my last question of all, what
Mm-hmm.
what would you like sexual abuse predators to know when it comes to victims they prey on?
Well, to the predators themselves, man, I mean, they got their own issues. That's a whole different ballpark. I'm not a predator, so I don't really have much to say to them. I can only, like, I'm not a lion. If these guys are lions and they're going after gazelles, I'm talking to the gazelles, because They got to know the strategies. They got to know what's up. People who are doing it have a whole different mindset. I don't have that mindset. It's like being a psychopath or a killer. You know, I can tell people, yo, like the best thing to do is lock your doors. Don't go in that neighborhood. You know, I hear things are going on over here. Stay over there. You know, but I'm not, you know, authorized to talk to psychopaths and people who do harmful things to people. They obviously went through something way more worse than I did or the same. And they already made a bad decision earlier on. I never made that decision. So anyone who's going through what I'm going through hasn't made that decision yet. If you had made that decision to touch someone else and continue that cycle, then there's a state that's their life, and what they do with it is giving me room in contrast to further know more and more of who I am and what I got to do for people that are in my roof and the loved ones and stuff like that.
But thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me.
Certainly. Sorry for swinging about. Yeah. Thank you for letting me communicate with you. I appreciate it so much.
And how would my the Aphro Kingdom be able to conversate with you, like be able to like learn more about you and be a part of your movement?
ZenJJackson.com. Just subscribe to my email and shoot me an email, and I'm heavily engaged. So just email me and I'll get right back to you. I write children's books once again, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah. At ZenJJackson.com is for my social media. ZenJJackson.com is the website.
Well, thank you again, Aphro King. We had another conversation. You see that this conversation needed to be expanded than most of my conversations, and it was well expressed and it was well needed. And I know someone who watches these episodes are going to get something out of it. Even if you know someone who personally been in this situation, have the tools now to like go on with your life and spread the word and help others.
Most certainly, yeah. Sorry, I just walked into the house. Now I'm with my family.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you.
All right, take care, okay?
Don't